Vin says, reminds me of when Dave said Vince lucked into Austin and Rock. Dave tries to position narratives because of his vendetta with people like Eric and VKM. Yeah, it is interesting how quickly he's able to, at times, sort of dismiss the success of others. Like, oh, they didn't do much. Oh, they only did this. Like, he certainly has his favorites, and I don't guess that makes him all that different from everybody else on Earth. But I do think when you're wearing the journalistic hat, people have a different expectation. But the very nature of him rating matches and giving a star system means it's less objective and it's more subjective. He's not really a journalist. He's an entertainer, right?
He's a clown.
Okay.
Because he thinks he's a journalist. And he tries so hard. Like, he'll tell you about all the participation trophies he got from people that don't fucking matter to try to add some credibility to his existence. Or he'll talk about how he teaches at colleges and, like he studies. He's always using the word study, like he's a student of something. He's a fucking wrestling nerd clown that charges people money to read his silly shit. Yeah, I'll give him credit for that. He's made a living, taking people's money and convincing them that he knows things he doesn't know. But that's got to get increasingly more difficult. Dave had it great before. It's one of the reasons he hates podcasters. He's always, taking shots at podcasters. Well, yeah, a lot of people take shots at podcasters because podcasting has much more influence over just about every aspect of our life now than any other form of media, including dirt sheets. And now people like me and Bruce Pritchard and Conan and so many others who are actually in the business and we're actually there and know the details of some of the issues that Dave lies about and twists and distorts or ignores, that we can call him out, which is why he hates podcasters so much. Because back before podcasting came along, nobody had a platform. Dave could write whatever he wanted to, and nobody challenged him because there's no real way to do it. And now we get to have fun doing it and make money doing it. And of course he hates it because now he's being exposed for the fraud. It's another thing. People, you hear a lot about projection. Dave likes to call people cons and frauds. But here's a guy charging $15 a month for lies, distortions, and bullshit, all while he's convincing people he's a journalist because he got a couple participation trophies from people that don't fucking matter. That don't just happen to work for a big newspaper. Who cares? Journalists are like, other than congressmen and women, probably the least respected group of people on the face of the earth are journalists. And Dave is at the bottom of that barrel.
Let's do a fun, lighthearted one here. Instagram Wrestling Historian is with us here live, and he wants to know, which wrestler do you wish you would have had for MLW One Shot? If you could have reached into your bag of tricks and pulled out one name to appear on One Shot with you, Eric, who would that have been?
Oh. So one wrestler from any organization that could have showed up with me on One Shot. That's a question, right?
Yep.
Yike. God, I don't know. I mean, my go-to is always going to be Randy Orton because he's always the coolest guy to work with, and he's such a big name. So it would have been fun to try to come up with something between Randy and Matt Riddle and Tom Lawler and everybody.
Oh yeah, that would have been fun. Yeah,
some kind of schmoz there would have been fun because it's a callback and
yeah,
maybe that.
Hey, it's unrelated, and we are going to get some of these questions. They're continuing to pour in here. Appreciate you guys being here with us at 83weeks.com. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on your notifications bell if you haven't already. You never know when we're going to go live again. Who would have thought earlier this week we'd be live on Sunday? I do want to remind you, though, we will be live this Saturday night, just moments after WWE brings back Saturday night's main event. We're going to be live here immediately following Saturday night's main event. It's this Saturday, December 14th, 83weeks.com is where you want to be. NBC has live wrestling again. I can't believe it's back. I'm pumped. I'm sure there's going to be lots of implications for the Royal Rumble. and maybe we'll get some hints about what to expect at WrestleMania. We're going to be discussing the good, the bad, and the ugly this Saturday night at 83weeks.com live. I do want to get your opinion, though, Eric. When I mentioned to you last week that a friend of ours wondered, hey, did WWE book Eric Bischoff for NXT in response to MLW? Because MLW was promoting you pretty heavily, and now we got to see you on TV 2 days in advance. And a friend of ours felt like, oh, he loves messing with people. And then we saw on the other side, there was a little bit of a hubbub about GCW and AEW. I guess one of the big performers, one of the big stars in GCW is a performer named Effie, who's a really great guy in real life. But he came out and had some work shoot comments, I guess, that were pretty pointed at AEW and Tony Khan. And it was all about them running the Hammerstein Ballroom. Of course, GCW is the largest independent organization here in America, and they're running the Hammerstein in New York City, which is very expensive. I've been told you're looking at like 6 figures to turn the lights on and run a show there.
Really?
So not cheap rent. It's a big deal for an organization like MLW. I'm sorry, not MLW, but it would be big for them too, for GCW to have an opportunity to run there. Now, before they get a chance to do that, as I understand it, AEW has booked 3 shows in the same building just a couple of weeks prior. And I guess Effie, as a point of pride, wanted to go defend his company and say he didn't feel like that was fair. And well, around that same time, they had announced that Ricky Starks, who is an AEW contracted performer, was going to be working and doing some appearances for GCW. And now AEW has canceled all those. And they've also come out and announced that Matt Cardona, who's been sort of like one of their main stars, one of the flag bearers, the pillars, if you will, of GCW for the last few years, he's going to be wrestling Chris Jericho for the Ring of Honor pay-per-view in that same building, the Hammerstein, for the Ring of Honor world title. So it does feel like a lot of people on the GCW side of things have their feelings on their shoulders right now. They're wearing it on their sleeves. Hey, AEW's picking on us. They pulled Ricky Starks off of the GCW show. Now they're booking one of our guys to wrestle in the same building before we get a chance to run there. What say you? Feels very Eric Bischoff of Tony Khan.
Oh, does any of it really matter? I mean, I'm sure it does to the people involved. Don't get me wrong. But in the big scheme of things, it's not going to change GCW's trajectory. They're doing great. They continue to do great. Yeah, this is probably a bit of a kick in the teeth for them, but 2 days later, it won't matter. I wouldn't stress over it. I think if I were Brett Lauderdale of GCW, I'd kind of take this as a compliment.
Yeah.
When you got a guy who's spending the hundreds of millions of dollars that he is trying to become a legitimate wrestling organization and failing miserably, but yet takes the time to screw with an independent organization, that's called fear. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And that's, if I was Brett, that's the way I would take it. He's afraid of you, Brett. And he's, Tony's got all the money in the world, so he can afford to lose money. He could care less. That's why he's keeping so many people under contract when he has no intention of ever using them, because the money doesn't matter to him. It's the perception and the ego that matters to Tony. So for such a long time, Tony, I think perhaps because of his proximity to the NFL and maybe to a lesser degree soccer in the UK, where trades and free agents was such an important part of those businesses, and it is, that Tony somehow thinks that it actually matters to the same degree in professional wrestling, and it really doesn't. Doesn't mean that there aren't some major talents that, if you can acquire them, at least on paper, should make a difference. It doesn't in AEW. In fact, we've seen so many of them come in with all the hope in the world. They're all going to be game changers, change the game forever, or reinvent the business, and fall flat on their face. Mercedes Moné and just about everybody else. through no fault of their own necessarily. That I think Tony's so heavily invested in the idea of free agency and trades that the idea of losing somebody, and again, go back to Cody, go back to Punk, he's so fearful in the marrow of his tiny little bones of perceiving to be on a losing end of a talent acquisition that he doesn't care about the money and he'll burn it. And that's what he's doing right now. He's trying to buy credibility. He's trying to buy one-upmanship. And it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's not going to matter to GCW and it's not going to matter to AEW. They're going to continue to circle the drain until they're finally flushed. And GCW will continue to grow and find new opportunities. So I wouldn't sweat it.
Did you just say his tiny little bones?
Yeah. He's a little dweeb. Him and Brian Alvarez. You can put him in your pocket and take him for a walk.
His tiny little bones. I don't know. Like it's a fish dish or something. Hey,